This is really odd. It's usually you asking all the questions. This is a man who doesn't need an introduction. He's a man who's called me up on stages so many times.
Yeah.
Now here I am sitting here trying to introduce a man whose voice I'll wake up to in the morning. Don't get any funny ideas. Nonetheless, Tom Urquhart, again, you're a part of the community. You're a fundamental person in our daily lives. We hear you on the radio, we see you in events, we see you on Sheikh Zayed Road posters. Welcome.
It's very kind. It's very kind. I don't know if I can live up to that billing. So
it's all factual. It's all factual.
Forgive me if I start asking you questions halfway through as well. It's just natural.
Try and control yourself. try and control yourself. Very short, but again, the whole idea is really for us to get to know you as Tom Urquhart rather than Dubai Tom,
yep,
as we call you at home, and hear about your views in life in general, because the whole mission of what we're doing is to make sure that community people support the communities day in, day out. And the community people are asking questions: who are they, and what do they do, and what are they really like in real life? Because a lot of times when I meet people for the first time, I think, is that what he or she looks like really? Is that what they sound like in real life? And that's what we're trying to do, bridge that gap into what we do and who we are.
Yeah, more than happy to
Amazing.
help out.
I'm going to start with the first
And I've
question.
been called a lot worse than Dubai Toms. Don't worry about that.
Oh, look, that was the official version.
I've had a lot worse.
And a coffee. That's all I have in hand. My first question. What is it that you most dislike about your personal appearance?
Oh, God.
I can answer that, but I'll let you.
If there's one sort of part of me that I've got a real issue with, well, where do I start? There's a long, long list. But I hate my back. I've never liked my back. I've got a big problem with my back for some reason. I feel very uncomfortable showing my back in public. That's why you'll very, very rarely see me in a swimming pool, if ever, these days.
Wow.
Because once past the age of 40, I'm quite comfortable on the side of a swimming pool,
Yes.
but not in it.
Moving on to the next question. Quality, or a quality you most admire in a female. Let's hope the missus is listening.
Gosh, yeah. She'll be listening intently. I can tell you that. I can guarantee that. And she'll be saying, right, where do I start? Here we go. Bom, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. I think honesty is fundamental. I think that's such an amazing quality to have, because when someone can bring home truths back to you, can address home truths to you, can be honest with you, and vice versa, you can be with them. I just love that quality, because there is nothing more creative of trust, I don't think, than that ability to speak one's mind. You know, there's a lot of front face, and I know this is something you're trying to do with this series, where you're trying to chip away at that front face and find the person behind that face, etc. But there is a lot of the image that you give out, and when you're able to relax in your home environment with those nearest and dearest to you, when those closest to you can be honest, you can be to them. And equally, when people meet you, and I think honesty is one of these issues. It goes back to the sort of social media thing, where honesty is one of those sort of values that people are just, it's fast being eradicated at the moment. Whilst I sit here with you, I'd like to say that.
I admire that for the simple reason. Only a couple of days ago, my daughter, Sophie, who's 15, said to me, she said, I think you should get a haircut, Dad, because it's not suiting you anymore. And it's the epitome of decisions.
Yeah.
So I will get a haircut.
Yeah.
She's put me in that corner where she was the one who asked me to actually grow it. But anyway, another story.
Yeah.
So it's very valid. Very valid. Thank you for that. Third question. When and where were you the happiest in your life?
Oh, wow. I've said this to a lot of people, and they sort of look at me in a strange way, because they sort of can't imagine why, maybe because of their own experience and things like that. But I think I really was my happiest at school. It's a time of your life when you're pretty carefree and you haven't got many worries in the world. But I was just blessed to have a really, really good set of. In fact, I campaigned to my parents. I lobbied my parents hard to send me boarding, because I actually was a day boy to begin with. But then I used to see my mates going out into the cricket nets or the rugby field or wherever of an evening, up to no good, up to good, whatever it might be.
Being boys.
And I've, so I want a part of that. I'd love to be. And when I got that, and I made friends for life, still my greatest friends to this day. I took so much more from school. My academics went through the roof, my sports went through the roof, my social skills went through the roof as well. Maybe not with girls, that's for sure. That took a little while. That took a while. I look at my kids now, and I do everything I can to try and make their schooling as memorable a time as possible, because you only get one shot at it, and it's not like they can go back on it, or if they do, then they've failed abysmally.
Yeah,
if
the wrong reasons.
If they're still taking exams at 26, then you've done something wrong there, haven't you?
The wrong reasons. Look, schooling, yes, it shapes you. It makes you who you are in more ways than one. In every aspect of life, you're being. It's sarcastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shapes you. So interesting that you say that. What surprises me though is that you remember that far back. But moving on.
I've got this uncanny ability. I can't remember what I did yesterday, that's for sure. What happened last night, but give me 40 years ago, I'm okay with that or something.
There you go. The next question is a no-brainer really, because I'd like to think I know the answer. Where would you like to live if you could choose? If you had a carte blanche and choose a residence place, where would that be in the world?
Two places I'm happiest. Two places I'm happiest. And this is taking nothing away from where I am at the moment. I love Dubai. It's been a great place to myself, my wife, my family. We've been here for 20 years now. All the kids have been born here, etc. I love the UK. I love London. I love Gloucestershire, where I grew up. Gloucestershire and Herefordshire. Where would I like to be? Where would I like to see out my days? Spiritually, I'm my happiest on top of a glen in deepest, darkest Scottish Highlands. Absolutely.
Wow, it's touching.
It's to do with the landscape, it's to do with the ruggedness, it's to do with the simplicity, it's to do with the air, it's to do with my Scottish heritage. I just absolutely love the Scottish Highlands, and the more remote the better. The colder, the wetter, the more difficult to get to, the better. However, trying to sell that to the War Office at the moment ain't going down that well. When you turn taps on and peat water comes out, that ain't that pretty.
It's not, no one's buying that.
I might have to have a winter and a summer residence, if that's okay. I could probably do winter up in Scotland and probably get away with a bit of time isolation. Again, goes back to sort of growing up, south of France for me. House, big kitchen table, big outdoor table, plenty of great food, plenty of great wine, plenty of great company, family, friends, buzz, noise, laughter, late nights, early mornings, just that sort of that southern France, and not Provence. I wouldn't be in Provence. I think that satisfies. Maybe bring me a bit further across to the sort of Albi region or thereabouts. But I've got such fond memories of that growing up, and in recent years and things like that. That if I could make that part of my life, then I would bite your hand off.
Amazing. Look again, what has transpired over the years, the airlines, the movement, it changed our lives. Who would have thought, me from a young age, that I would have seen so many countries. I would have seen, and the same with you. And now we go back to our experiences in life and we think, southern France, I enjoyed that particular chapter, and then northern Italy or Scotland, and it's really made us who we are. There's a lot of global citizens, and I think that really defines a lot of our era generation.
But what I find really interesting as well about that is how, and I always fall foul of it. I always fall foul of, if I've been on holiday in the south of France, then immediately I come, and it might not have been there, it might have been, Italy, or it might have been Vietnam, or it might have been wherever. But immediately I come back and I try and recreate that. I call it the rosé test. If you drink rosé in the south of France, and you've
never the same.
It is, and then you try and do
same.
it anywhere else in the world, and it's like, it's nice, but it's not that nice, And there are so many similarities to that. Eating eating certain foodstuffs in Italy, the spices in Asia. It's trying to recreate there, and that's why I feel that there's a certain ambience, and I think there are those that you find here. I like to think when I come back to Dubai after, or if I ever leave, there will be those experiences that are just synonymous with this city and with this country for me. That I will look forward to. I'm sure it will be, as long as I'm allowed back.
Undoubtedly, they'll be here. We can always recreate those experiences, and I think it's important because that's a rich heritage that we try and relive, because it reminds us of who we were and who we are and where we're headed.
Yeah.
We had 2 more questions, Tom, if I may. Most treasured possession. Again, we keep talking about the missus, but
wow, yeah.
Let's.
Please tell me after that I would never ever lay claim to my wife as a possession, so I couldn't possibly.
No, I was talking
that.
about the ring that you bought her. I had to come back with
I
that.
don't really. I didn't have much say in that either, so I'm certainly not getting it back. That's for sure. So let's discard the humans nearest and dearest to us because they are their own people. In terms of, there are certain items that I couldn't do without. A linen jacket. I always have to have a linen jacket. Sentimental possessions. When my grandmother, who I was very, very close to, she left me, her husband, my grandfather, who I never got to meet because he died early, but he had a very illustrious military career, and he had an extraordinary selection of medals, and I was fascinated by what he'd achieved and what he'd done. He'd been a commandant at Sandhurst for 2 terms, he was in the Royal Engineers, he'd been at D-Day, he'd been here, there and everywhere. And I'm sure the stories got blown up a little bit down time as well. Because,
always the case.
Because when I try and check them with Dad and his brothers now, they never really ring true. They say, well, I don't remember it that way. But what I did get left is these medals, which now are kept in a safety deposit box back in the United Kingdom. And yeah, they're not the greatest selection of medals known to mankind. They're not the most expensive selection of medals, but
sentimental values.
The sentiments, and again, as I become more and more of a sentimental old fool, the older I get, and we get further away from the sacrifices that our ancestors made in the Great Wars and in lives gone by, to give us opportunities that we've had since. And when I see my children, sort of losing connection with the sacrifices of the Great Wars, it's something that is very dear to me, and so that's something that I will never let go, regardless of how tough times get.
There is a soft side to you, isn't there?
I'm not
It's not all about your back.
I'm not all about it. I'm not all about the old dirty back.
Radio. Moving on. Heroes. Who are they in real life? Who do you look up to and say, God, I admire what you do? And you've just mentioned your late grandfather.
Heroes. The go-getters. People that are willing to give it a go. People that have, and again, I have to choose my words so carefully here for fear of people turning off, but we've all seen the Will Smith films, and we've listened to the Al Pacino quotes, and we've seen this and we've seen that, and go believe in your dream and follow your dreams, etc. But it's not all Hollywood. There are so many people around you that have done that, and in so many different fields. You don't have to be Lionel Messi. Okay, yeah, he followed his dream, and kudos to him. But you can set up your own hospitality business. You can grow oysters in Fajera. You can set up your own media company. You can do so much, and I think that is the biggest challenge, because it's so much easier to not do it, to have that grit to continue. I think is something, and that's why I think I've got such an affinity with, what you do, what your industry is all about, because there are so many examples of that. We look into any kitchen in any part, not just of this city, the world, or any restaurant, or any food manufacturer, someone who's trying to do something that they believe in and they do it properly, I think is commendable, and I take a lot of solace and support from that.
Thank you, Tom. I think there are endless heroes out there, and I think sometimes we just don't see them. But there is an endless amount of people out there who are trying to make a difference at many different levels. And for me, they are the heroes.
Yeah.
Indeed. Last one. Tom's motto, what would that be? What do you get up every morning saying, that's my commitment, that's my obligation, that's my wish, let's do it again?
It changes on a daily basis.
Let's hope Richard is not listening.
It changes on a daily basis. Well, my grandmother always told me that the one motto to live by is always go before you go. It took me a long time to work out what she was talking about, but I sort of get it now. But that's neither here nor there. The one that, well, the very practical one that I'm living by at the moment, because of my current circumstances, and I'm doing a morning show on Dubai Eye, which is
circumstances. I like using words.
Very early starts, and you know me, Naim. I'm not renowned for my early mornings. I'm more
early finishes.
Yes.
Early morning finish
for the early morning finish rather than the early morning rise. So it's a bit of a shock to the system. So I looked for a bit of advice of how, because despite everything and things like that, it has been known that I can be a bit of a grumpy old so-and-so first thing in the morning. But I took a bit of solace and advice from people who'd been in that sort of situation before, and there's a great disc jockey back in the UK called Chris Evans, who also gave advice to another great morning disc jockey called Zoe Ball, who was married to Fatboy Slim for a long time. And the two of them had long-term roles on Radio 1 and Radio 2 over in the UK, but for years got up at the crack of dawn. And the one piece of advice they gave is, as soon as the alarm clock goes at that ungodly hour,
bounce up.
You don't even have to bounce, you just have to swing your feet. You swing your feet, and as long as your foot touches the ground,
you're up.
You're up and running. And you know what? I've tried it because I've done the snooze thing a couple of times and it's backfired. And I've tried to sort of double guess it. But if you could just convince yourself to swing those feet, hit that floor, and it is that sort of mandate of hitting the floor running. And once you get your feet on the floor, keep those feet on the floor. Don't let those feet elevate off the floor, because you ain't an angel. No one's an angel, that's for sure. Keep your feet on the floor, keep your feet on the ground until you go back to bed. And then get up and do it again.
Tom, amazing. Thank you for sharing your
Not at all, buddy. Thanks
insights.
for the invite. It's very kind.
Yeah, great to speak to you on one-to-one level, and I hope that everyone finds this useful, beneficial, and humorous to a certain extent. Thank you.